rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it is
definitely a thing for just being a solo operator.
The change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
All good.
All right, welcome back, Andy. How you doing? So, want to help people understand more about your business. I'm going to ask some questions about it, but your business, and we talked about this already, has really been built to focus on high-end gardens and the horticulture work that you're passionate about. So, when you first started, it wasn't the case that you had high-end jobs. I'm assuming I think you mentioned that actually you had one particular customer that chased you specifically that might have been a high-end job, but you were taking on anything and everything,
right? When I first
right?
came back, it was just anything I could get. Local was good, but, it was a lot of, your mum's friend has something that needs done, or this lady down the street needs something done, or it was, if I was feeling close to half a week when I first got back, that would be great. And then all of a sudden it was a full week, and then all of a sudden you're getting more and more jobs. But it was, don't get me wrong, the jobs I was doing at the start were horrendous. There was 6 foot high weeds. There was, cars in the back of gardens where there should have been a lawn. There was, it was a lot of crap, just nice. Horrible jobs that you just had to. I used to hear clients say, "Oh, it was so funny hearing you singing," because I'd always put my headphones in and just sing. And I was like, "Oh, what did you hear?" And they're like, "I don't know, it wasn't much." And what I was singing was, "It works hard for the money, so hard for the money." And that was the only thing I would do, just sing that over and over in my head, just like, "Hey, you just got to pay the bills." But then you get.
Now, when you say there was cars in the backyard in the gardens where there should be gardens, I think you're mentioning to me before, this is not like just a parking lot.
No,
you're
like
talking
a rusted
like
out
car
car,
that you didn't
like an old
know was there until you
it's
started
got no
cleaning the
windows
garden
left, and it's the weeds have grown through it, and you're essentially whippersnipping grass off a dash. There was some shopping trolleys, and you're wheeling it down onto the nature strip. It was anyone I could get at the time, and then slowly you get better ones, and then some. We spoke before, but it was about chance and luck. You might just get the right customer, or you might just get the right friend of a friend, and then you say yes and you go and you do a good job. And what I've always done is present myself well. I've always had uniform, be polite, say if you can't do a job well, don't say you can do it, because it's just going to come back and bite you down the track. So just do what you can do to your capacity and to your knowledge, and then you'll start to get the jobs you want because you're doing a good job. So if you're doing a good job, more good work will come your way. And that's essentially how we get work now. It's just referral. It's just whether it's through landscape architects or landscapers that say, "Hey, we've built your garden, but you have no warranty unless you use leaf by leaf, because we know that they're going to keep it to a high standard." Or if it's a client that says, "Why are you wasting your money with Joe Blow down the street? You got to get these guys in. They're going to make your garden better." And, sometimes you need to look back and give yourself a little pat on the back and say, "Yeah, we got to that point." But it takes a lot of time and effort. It's not an overnight thing.
Now, I want to walk the listeners through this with you because I think it's really important. I spend a lot of time with my podcast trying to help listeners reimagine their business and get their business to where it's going to work well for them. But a lot of what lawn care and gardening businesses do is they improve route density. They take on those jobs where the Commodore is completely buried in weeds, and they go, "Okay, I can make really good money on doing rubbish cleanups and overgrown garden cleanups." And to be fair, there is good money in those jobs, but that's not the high-end clients, right? That's the low-end clients. And you might, all right, well, I'm going to do a $5,000 job, but it's a one-off job if it's a garden cleanup, a complete overhaul like that, getting it ready for sale or whatever it might be. Whereas it sounds to me like route density and chasing those high-paying one-off jobs is not really
at
what
all.
you're
Like
after.
it is nice
that
having
right?
if we've got jobs that are, say, we work in teams of 2 majority of the time, sometimes up to 4 of us on a job. But it's if you've got, say, 2 guys by 5 hours at a job, it's nice to have one that's in the same town or the same area or even the same streets. Ideal, but we're not seeking that. It's more the individual garden I want and the client. But we're pretty lucky. A lot of our work will be 8-hour minimum visits, so there's not a lot of travel. I had a look at our schedule the other day. Now that it's the regular maintenance is slowing down, we're going into more of a winter schedule now. Bulk of our work is 5 hours plus, if not 8 hours. They're just big gardens. It's average block times 2 is sort of what we're doing. And then you got the acreage ones, which just take up so much more time.
So I've mentioned on my podcast before in terms of how I've changed my business, and not big nose myself because I'm completely different to you, right? And everyone's got to make their own decisions and be a big boy or big girl and grow their business to be what they want and what they're going to be proud of. But one of the things I've done is I've stopped taking on smaller jobs. I don't do residential jobs. So if somebody asks me for a quote, and I know it's, say, a residential job, if you're there for an hour, you're probably going to be doing a $1,000 to $2,000 per annual turnover job. And I look at that and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that job for you. My minimum job is going to be worth $50,000 or $40,000. So it sets the expectation. It's not that their job is not good enough. It's just that, going back to what you were saying, you're doing 5 hours and 8 hours on one job at one time. And I'm the same. I'm like, okay, I want jobs where I'm there for a day a week
for us,
or more.
If we're doing 8 hours, but it's 16 hours essentially, it's 2 guys majority of the time. But that might say we're only going there once a month. It's only 12 visits a year, so it's not a lot of our clientele. That's nothing, it's chump change to them, but it makes their garden a lot nicer of a place. Like our catchphrase is shaping your environment. Like it's I want clients to be happy in their environment. It's their space. I understand that it's often hard for us, because we're not living in the houses we look after. We're not making the money that these people make. So when we say, oh, it's going to be this much, and we think about, oh, Jesus, that's a lot. Like 50,000 a year on my garden, no way. And these people don't even blink an eyelid. Like you have to separate yourself from the dollar sign, I guess. It's a service you're providing, not a price.
Now, I'm going to relate this back to lawn mowing a lot because that's been my primary income is from lawn mowing. I do a lot more gardening now than I used to do. But if you're mowing a lawn and you do it once a month, particularly, I'm sure Melbourne's the same as Lake Macquarie. I'm up near Newcastle, Lake Macquarie. If you mow a lawn once a month through summer, especially this summer we've just had, the grass gets thin. It grows a foot or two in between each cut. It ends up not being a lawn. It ends up being weeds because you're not cutting it often enough, right? So what I'm getting at is I've chased customers that want their lawn cut weekly or fortnightly, and the fortnightly cuts, I call them my worst customers. So I'm like, yes, you're still a good customer, but you are the absolute worst level of customer that I will call good. So that way, weekly is the standard I'm chasing. And when I'm doing weekly lawn mowing, I know that it's going to be high quality turf because it's getting cut frequently. You're only taking the tip off the grass and it's keeping it nice and tidy. So why I'm bringing this up is to ask you about what you're saying. If you've got customers where you turn up once a month, that's 12 visits a year. And for gardening, that's good. So then you compare to a gardening customer where you turn up weekly, and you might do.
Yeah, one
I
of
think you
those
said
jobs we've
16
got
hours a
is
week.
32 hours a week. We've got a few that are, we've got probably 10 or 11 jobs that are 8 hours a week. That's weird. We're short staffed at the moment, so it's hard to keep up. It's a good time of the year to be short staffed. But with our lawns, like,
Yeah,
so the
sure.
4-week jobs, that's most of the time over the warmer season, they'll come into 2 to 3 weeks. And then over winter, we'll keep it at 4 to 6 weeks, because depending on the garden, there'll be rose pruning, fruit tree pruning,
Yeah.
grapevine pruning. You got to do all the winter stuff. But the lawns essentially over winter, like from June to August, might have 1 or 2 mows just to keep it neat. They're going dormant. Like it's funny. I hear you guys talk about your lawns up there, and I heard an episode the other day, and you talked about fescue and how you don't have a single lawn. Like that's the big thing down here. Like RTF, like tall fescue. That's the designer. That's the choice of grass for most designers, because it's a nice deep dark green color. It looks lush. You leave it quite long. Essentially, though, it's not great. It soaks up heaps of water. It doesn't self-repair. It's pretty fragile in comparison to like a Eureka Premium Kikuyu or your Sir Walter. Nowadays, everyone seems to be putting Tiff Tough in. But they all go dormant. All those warm season grasses go dormant down here, and then by springtime we start doing our lawn repairs, air ragging, scalping, top dressing, stuff like that, getting them back ready to go. Like we've got a few Santan and Cooch lawns and a bunch of Tiff Tough lawns now that we've kind of missed the window, unfortunately, because it's been wet, but we use Color Guard on a few of the lawns, which people, I don't know why, but they can't handle their grass going brown for 3 months. So essentially you spray paint it, but it looks decent and it keeps the grass green. And it's just something else that you can, I guess, without sounding like it's a cash grab, but it's a reason to beat the garden.
A lot of people have been asking about which brand of battery tool to buy, and I don't like to recommend one brand of battery for everyone or every situation. Dealer support and access to parts and service all play a big role in that decision. Some brands have better tools for specific needs or each product category. I've been using a variety of brands, and I endeavour to provide unbiased interviews on Aussie Lawn Stars with as many of those product brands as possible. I reached out to Ego Power Plus through the podcast because of how Barry supports the industry and Ego owners. Barry has impressed me with his loyalty to customers in providing support and listening to the needs of the industry, which has resulted in a full lineup of new commercial tools landing in Australia over the last 12 months that has positioned Ego as a leader in the commercial tool space for outdoor power equipment. Visit egopowerplus.com.au to see if they have the tools you need today. Well, it's important, and I believe there's been a lot of science-backed research to prove that even just painting your grass green helps to improve the quality of your lawn. It's not just about making it look good so the client wants to spend more time in the garden too. There's value in it outside of just making money.
The Color Guard stuff, I read up on it heaps last year, but it apparently does add some sort of value to the grass. And once it grows out, you mow it off, and and then you go again next year. But it's something to do with helping it photosynthesize or something. You'd have to look into it a bit more.
Yes. Yeah, so the process of photosynthesis works better when the leaf is nice and green and getting the sunlight and all those things, right? So and also the cut frequency makes a big difference.
And these people are dropping, some of the garden builds would be $500,000 or more, maybe up to $1 million on some of them. You want the lawn area to look good over winter, even if it's cold and miserable.
So I guess what I'm getting at here, you've built your business from chasing dead-end jobs and one-off jobs through to chasing customers that are high-end. You mentioned some numbers in terms of the percentage of your customers that are high-end customers now is quite high. But how much of a difference does it make going from those jobs where you spend once a month there to the jobs where you're there weekly and regularly? I find a big difference for me because I'm on a large commercial site where I spend most of my time now, and that means that if a hedge needs a trim, I can do it weekly. Or if a hedge needs a trim and I do it once a year, I can see
For
how
sure,
much
yeah.
it suffers from
I
doing
think
it.
part of the
So that
job is also trying to educate the client on the benefits of us being there and the benefit of feeding the garden, pruning the garden at the right time, mowing the lawns at the correct time, mowing the lawns at a nice height, not scalping them and just hoping it comes back, or not letting it get too long and then you mow it and it's yellow because it's got wet and it's just almost rotted underneath with the thatch.
yeah.
It's you client relations in that sense is a big part of being like, hey, this is why we're here, this is what we're doing, and trust me, in 3 months you're going to see the benefit of this visit or something like that. It's that comes with time as well. Like, it's for sure.
Yeah.
When I first started, I wasn't rocking up to a lawn with a car and a shopping trolley in it going, hey, have you ever thought about color guard through winter? You could really spray paint that car a nice color. But the jobs where you've got to show the attention to detail and show, not set yourself apart from everyone else, but show, yeah, okay, we're worth the money. If you show, it's one of those jobs, isn't it? Like, the better you are, the better the results, and the results speak for themselves. So the people can't argue with results.
Well, let's talk about me for a second, and I want to relate this to you. So you jump in and you talk more about you than me, but I'm going to say when I started, I was told cut vertical edges and make them sharp and you will impress your customers. Keep the lawn looking tidy and make it look like, use a blower to make sure that everything comes up nice and crisp and tidy. So you got sharp edges, you got clean footpaths and driveways, and everything impresses the customer. So this is very lawn focused again, because that's been my background. But the little things that you do like that, you start going, okay, this is building a professional image about my business. And the reason I'm relating this to you is because when I started as a cowboy, I still started with one step forward, going, I need to put another step forward to grow and improve my business image, my reputation, so that I'm getting better customers. I don't know that I would have seen it as getting better customers back then, but certainly making sure the customers I had were appreciating my reputation. And I started to recognize straight away people asking me for a quote. And the number one thing that come out their mouth is the last guy this or the last guy that. And you would have heard all of those stories, I'm sure. But when you hear the last guy didn't bother turning up, it's like, oh, the bar is really low. All I've got to do is turn up and they're happy, right? So I'm doing better than that. I'm aiming for sharp edges and turning up. And then after that, you go, oh, well, I could raise with this customer that I can do some extra treatments on their lawn, or I can do some gardening, I can do hedge trimming, or I can do whatever else. So building that reputation as you go. What I'm getting at here is, over time, if you improve 1% here and 1% there, I've got to the stage where I'm pretty happy with what I've improved, but I'm still looking at improving, right? It seems to me that you've gone, by improving 1% at a time, correct me if that's wrong, to the point where you are chasing the top 1% or the top 0.1%.
Yeah, for sure.
Customers.
I think you have to be pushing yourself to get 1% better, or if you want to say it like that, but if you have to have ambition to be better, otherwise you'll become stagnant or you'll go backwards and the guy behind you will want to go past you. So you need to be pushing yourself, learning more, getting those crisp lines, being able to do it both ways. You can't walk on the road, so you have to be on the lawn. Well, you have to be able to do it from lawn side, not roadside. Okay, cool. You've got some leaf litter left over, or the catchers.
Yeah.
When you've used the catcher, it's dropped out some grass clippings. Or I'll blow them off at the end of the day. Like, if we're leaving the job spotless, one of my TAFE teachers, when I did my apprenticeship, told me, you should leave a garden and it should look like no one's ever been there. And it was the weirdest advice I've ever had, but she was 100% right. Like, your prune should look natural. Your cutting should look like
Yeah.
everything in a garden looks better when it looks natural. If you're forcing something, or you've hacked out a branch and there's a huge ripped branch hanging there, or, you know, just little things like that. If you're not pushing yourself to better yourself, then you're not going to get the better jobs. Like, you need to be pushing.
On that comment, you should leave it looking natural. That's really hard when you're doing a once-off cleanup,
okay. It doesn't,
hedge reduction, or skirt
yeah,
lift.
it
Those
doesn't.
sorts of jobs are really hard.
It's not something to live by, but
I still think it's
if
true.
you're pruning a plant, you should know what you're doing and how it's going to, what that prune is going to affect the plant and the future of that plant, opposed to being like, I don't care, just smash everything to 2 foot high with a hedge trimmer and we're done. Like, and don't get me wrong, that work's out there and probably that work pays well, but it's not the work I want to be doing. It's just that I'll happily do 8 hours with a pair of secateurs in my hand and just selectively prune out limbs and twigs, essentially, and pluck weeds and make a garden bed look good. And someone might be like, geez, that's all you did for the day. I'm like, yeah, but that's what the garden needed. I don't know. The thing, the industry's so vast.
It's a very different approach, isn't it?
The fact that I could start on those jobs and push to get to where we are now, which by all means, like, we're not. There's still companies that I look at and I go, geez, their work's nice. I want to be doing those jobs. But you need to have, I think ambition is the biggest thing in the industry. If you're happy just mowing factory nature strips, like I know you're doing the few big ones, that's grouse. But for me, I think having the horticultural background, I always want variety. And now with the few guys that work for me, I don't really mow lawns that often. Like, that's the end. That is where you say the bar's low. That is the entry level. Like, mowing lawns and blowing down is the entry level. But sometimes it's really nice to just jump on a ride-on and kick about for 2 hours and look at it and go, shit, yeah, it looks grouse. Like, you know, the weather's nice, the sun's hitting, it's glistening. You go, geez, that looks good. And other days you go, no, I couldn't think of anything worse than pushing a mower for the next 6 hours or whatever it might be. It's there's a place for everyone in the industry, but I think if you want to be gardening or horticultural services, you need to have drive and ambition. And it's not even just in gardening, essentially. Like, you've clearly got a nice niche now for yourself where you're getting paid really well. But you had to know on point that just doing the crap mow and blow jobs wasn't what you wanted, you know? And you've obviously learned and pushed yourself to get to that next stage.
Yeah, I said this to you before, and I've got to keep my work confidential because I signed a confidentiality waiver to be there. But when you turn up to do a job where you're getting paid well to be there and the expectation's high, you do that work and you know that you're doing that top 1% or 0.1% that you're doing. I'm not claiming I'm in the top 1%, but you take a lot of pride in doing that job really well. And then you get absolutely humbled when you realize that you're basically just an outdoor cleaner, as you referred to it. Or in my case, I literally just feel like I'm the lowest of the low doing the menial tasks that nobody else wants to do, like literally just blowing out a car park so there's no leaves there and to make it look pretty when people turn up. And it's like, well, it's humbling, but I still take a sense of pride in doing that job. And and the reason I brought this up is because you mentioned like the lawn mowing is the lowest of the low in that sense. But there's, out of the jobs I do on a regular basis, I sit there and go, you know what? Probably trimming hedges and tidying plants up so they look natural, like you said, is one of the things I find absolutely critical. Another one is sitting there on the lawnmower, on the ride-on mower, and just making sure that the lawn looks like a golf course. And then this week, somebody turned up an excavator and dug big holes all the way through it, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Humbling again.
Yeah, it is humbling. And don't get me wrong, we still do jobs. We look after a school, and you're working on a garden bed and you think it looks great, and then you come back a week later and it's full of packets of chips and moldy sandwiches and stuff. It's pretty leveling. And yeah, I do often say that we're the outdoor cleaners, but
Yeah.
I guess if you're happy with that, then that's how you can push yourself, because I don't want to work in an office. I've worked in retail. I've worked doing some pretty bang average jobs over the years, and
Yeah.
I know that I'm happy with this, and you can have a good living, as you know. You can have a good living with it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not loaded by any means, but I'm comfortable and happy.
But let's talk about that. I want to talk about the living, the money, and those things, the business side of things. And we're going to take a short break before we do talk about that. But I think it's really important to cover that, and the difference between what you do and what I do and what other people do when they're starting in business. Sometimes the numbers don't look that much different, but
Yeah,
they can
for
make
sure.
a massive difference, right?
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.